Good morning. Welcome to joint services between McDougall United Church and Ogden United Church. This is the Labor Day weekend. I guess we call that the official end of summer. We've also in Calgary been celebrating Pride Week. And so today we have a very special service actually. We're going to be streaming the Citywide Pride service after Bill and I have a little conversation about what it means to be affirming ministries here. There are some announcements. First of all, there will be a congregational meeting for McDougall United Church on the 12th of September, 1 o'clock. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. There has been the search committee has found a candidate to put forward, and so we are going to be receiving their report and voting on that candidate to join the McDougall staff. So this is a very important meeting for all those at McDougall to be a part of. So please do contact the office if you need the Zoom link, 1 o'clock on the 12th. Speaking of services between McDougall and Ogden, as you know, Ogden has started their project, which will take a while to complete. When do you think it might be up? I mean, obviously, construction, you never know, but what's the timeline, Bill?
The estimated timeline is completion early August.
Early August.
Yeah.
And so Ogden being without a sanctuary to worship in, our leadership council and Ogden's board have discussed possibilities, and we've decided that we will continue to have joint services until Ogden is able to move into their building again, which we're looking forward to and is a great opportunity for all of us to be part of joint services. So we're really looking forward to that over the next while. We are in our 60th anniversary. In fact, I just realized I put up a banner this morning. And the banner, at the bottom of the banner, I don't know if there's any chance you can zoom in on that, but this banner over here, it says 1961 to 1991, and actually has an outline of the old McDougall United Church. That was obviously a 30th, right? That 60 to 90 is 30, a 30th anniversary banner. So we have wanted to celebrate, and we had set a date for the 19th of September. We are so hoping that the weather will cooperate, and how that event will go is we will have an outdoor service starting at 11. You need to bring your lawn chairs, everyone. And we will have the service outdoors, and then there will be a barbecue at around noon, and then there'll be an outdoor concert and games and art and such for the kids. This is all, hopefully, if the weather cooperates and if the COVID situation doesn't bring further regulations by the government. In line with that, you know, we had an outbreak, I guess you could call it, here at the church, and so we're online again, and we'll be next week as well. Then the outdoor service, and there is a McDougall, and Bill is part of this as well. We have a sort of worship bounce ideas off of committee, if you want to call it that, and they will be meeting after the outdoor service, and we'll evaluate what the scenario is like in Alberta and whether we can go back to in-person worship, or if it's safe for us to do so, because of course we can have in-person worship, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so we are evaluating the situation, what the regulations are right now. You know, masking indoors, although Bill tells me that churches might be exempt from that, but putting a good example forward, we're going to remain closed until at least after the outdoor service that will be on the 19th. And then you can all go the next day filled with the Spirit to mark your ballot in the national election. So, Bill, if I've forgotten anything.
No, but you brought up the national election.
Oh, well, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep.
All right. So we thought we'd start. There is a service that we will be showing you that was prepared by the Affirming Connections, which is a United Church sort of organization run by Pam Rocker in the Chinookwiz region. And she has put together and made connections with a lot of leaders from other faith traditions. So it's an interfaith pride service, which expands our understanding of what it means to celebrate together and to worship God who is one. So we thought we'd have a bit of a conversation because McDougall has been an affirming ministry, I think, for about 5 years, I think. And Ogden is not an affirming ministry at this time. And yet we worship together and we enjoy each other's company and love being a community together. But we thought we'd have a conversation about what it means to be an affirming ministry and all that. And I'm going to toss it over to Bill because he has some questions about our ministry, and we'll have a conversation about what it means and looks like.
Yeah, and so to be clear for folks that are watching, McDougall has been an affirming ministry for at least 5 years. I feel like it might actually be longer, but
I think about 5. I've been here 6. So.
But Ogden is not an affirming ministry, but Ogden has moved with its policies and its board decisions in line with a church that I think is moving towards at least having a discussion about becoming a formally affirming congregation. It would have been in 2016 that the board made the motion. I think when churches sort of started doing this work, there was a lot of we'll just leave it up to the minister to decide.
Yeah.
Right? Whoever the minister can decide, and certainly what a number of folks like myself have wanted to see is actually some statement, some intent, some intentional decision making around recognizing same-sex marriage and performing same-sex marriages and inviting the LGBTQ plus community into worship and into community together. And so Ogden's board has made all of those motions now and has taken it out of the hands of we'll leave it up to the minister to decide. And these are all sort of steps that happen along the way of an affirming process, but we have not engaged in the formal, I think it's about a year process for affirming ministry.
Really varies depending on what the ministry is and what the understanding of the congregations are. But one thing that is essential in becoming an affirming ministry is that you have to have a marriage policy. So you have to perform same-gender marriages in your, or now we have fluidity. So queer marriages, I guess I would call it. You have to have a policy around that. And actually, when McDougall made theirs, our marriage policy says that anybody who is legally able to be married in Canada can be married in McDougall United Church, recognizing that things do change in society. And that we, if there's been a move in society, that we want to move with it. So, yeah, that's the first thing, a marriage policy. Without that, you can't be an affirming ministry. And it can't be the minister can decide.
The minister gets to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the key pieces that concern me as a minister in the United Church today are obviously that we live in a fairly divisive kind of society right now. I know that the community of Ogden, not Ogden United Church, but the community of Ogden tends to be a very conservative-leaning, traditional values-leaning kind of a community, and that certainly even in Canada, where we have not, I believe, formally banned conversion therapy yet, because I believe it was actually stalled out at the Senate of Canada. But in a lot of cases, the folks that the community of Ogden votes for tend to be the people whose names currently are sitting on the vote opposing a ban on conversion therapy. And so there's a lot in that that I think makes it very challenging to consider questions of affirming ministry, knowing that it would really kind of set you apart from the public sentiment around you. And yet at the same time, I know that the folks at Ogden United Church have very strong desire and heart for being a place where people can come and find a safe space to be in, a safe community to be a part of, and a welcoming and inviting community to be a part of. And I think that benefits everybody. I think the challenge for a lot of people when we talk about things that I'll call accessibility, even though we've kind of co-opted the word a bit to really only focus on like physical disabilities. But accessibility, regardless of whether it's accessibility because of your gender or because of your physical ability or your cognitive ability or any of those kinds of things, anytime that a community becomes more accessible to everybody, everybody benefits,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and that's, I think, the reason that affirming ministry is so important, because it actually leads to that in some ways. Now, I have been through affirming ministry conversations in 2 different churches through the process. And both times it was like, why do we single out LGBTQI folks? Like, we need to be welcoming to everybody. Like, everybody should be welcome. And like, nobody disputes that. But I haven't been to a church that has said poor people are not allowed here, or that God hates poor people. I haven't been to a church that didn't try at least to become accessible in their physical building so that people who are not physically able to do stairs, for instance, can't access this. But there are many churches who make queer folk feel very uncomfortable or unwelcome and are actually hateful. And I suppose that's why this affirming ministry, why we start with the queer community, the LGBTQI community, is because the church has made an intentional statement against their identities. And so we as a church need to begin there, because if we can't welcome those people that we have, basically marginalized, then can we be trusted with other groups as well? And I think at McDougall, that's happened. Like, at the beginning, we became affirming. We had these conversations. For sure, there are people who are conservative in McDougall and have been, and the conversations at the beginning really kind of echoed what you were saying about Ogden being a traditional community and family values community, and maybe politically making votes that seem to the LGBTQI folks might mean you're not welcoming, right? But the important thing about the affirming process is you actually have conversations about that. Like, it's not parking lot conversations. It's not calling your friend, what do you think about this whole thing conversations. It's intentional conversations where you invite people from the community to speak about their experiences. At McDougall, when we started the affirming process, there were actually quite a large number of folks in our community who had gay kids or trans grandkids. And it sort of allowed the freedom to have an open conversation without judgment. And I think that's the gift of the affirming process for the community.
Yeah, and in line with that, like, my sense, I've never been through an affirming process. I would consider myself to be an affirming minister, and that's part of why the conversation at the board at Ogden started when I was a student, was to make sure that I would be free to be able to exercise that ministry in my time at Ogden. But I think that my sense has always been that there's this work that needs to happen of first stripping away the assumptions and the illusions and the image that you may have been given. And let's be honest, even from still popular media, there's a lot of sort of stereotypical and really, really damning kind of imagery that's used when you look at the LGBTQ community, and makes it really difficult to, where you look at the extreme of something and go, I don't know if I could do that every day, right?
Yeah.
And recognizing that more often than not, any chance you get to find out that, hey, the person that sits next to you has a trans grandkid,
Yeah.
and to pull away the whatever the word is, the illusion or the assumption behind it, I think is always helpful. Anytime you can put a face to something,
For sure.
as opposed to constructing an image.
Oh, it's so much harder to discriminate somebody who worships with you in a church than it is someone on a television screen, right? You know?
And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to do this. I'm grateful for the opportunity for us to all participate in the Citywide Pride service today. It is citywide. It is interfaith. There are a number of contributors across the board, and I know that this will be Ogden's first Pride service today, and so hopefully you folks from Ogden that are watching online right now will take the opportunity to watch the service and see just how deep and rich and powerful and meaningful and wonderful Pride service can be, and we'll take the opportunity to fully engage with it. And there will be subtitles for everything, and they've got a great guest preacher for it, and you are going to, I think, really enjoy this opportunity. And if I'm wrong, then I'm sure you'll let me know.
They know how to reach
They
you.
know how to find me, yeah.
Yeah, I might just say to the McDougall congregation as well as to the Ogden congregation, becoming an affirming ministry has really changed everything about our community in the sense that we now intentionally say, you're all welcome in this place, and not just welcome. We hope you participate and become part of our congregation in a real and meaningful way. And that affirming process and being an affirming community has really helped us shape and focus that so that everybody has a place at the table.
So I have to ask one more question.
Sure.
Because you use the word that I think is what freaks a lot of people out at the start of an affirming process.
Yeah.
So has changed everything about your church and your community, but has it changed the things that actually matter to
When
this
I say changed, I don't mean that everything, like we all come with rainbows now. We don't have any boas in the church, like rainbow boas. It's not that. We still have worship in exactly the same way. Me being a new minister probably changed worship more than becoming an affirming ministry did. What has changed is what people understand the church is about, to me. And that means that the church is about expanding the table and being a place where all are welcome. And there's a difference between welcome and affirm, actually. Someone, she was a friend of mine, was talking about being in a community back in the Maritimes somewhere, and she loved her church community, and she'd have tea with them and everything. They were so lovely to her. They knew that she was gay, but they never asked her about her children or her spouse. They never asked about her life. It was sort of like a don't ask, don't tell situation, right? She said, I felt so welcome there. But then when she became part of an affirming ministry where, her wife was included, she could talk about her son, she could talk openly about her life, then she understood what it meant to be affirmed, right?
Yep.
That the differences between, me and her are actually quite small. And I think too often we blow up our differences as being the most important thing instead of our what we share. And so affirming ministry helps you to focus on what you share as humanity and to encourage everyone in their giftedness, because we all are, to participate in that community with their whole selves, not half selves. And that's what's changed. Not, what music we sing. Like I said,
we didn't take out the Lord's Prayer,
no.
right? Like, yeah.
No. It's not that. Still have all the same groups we had before. What hopefully has happened is, we as people are more intentional about what our community looks like.
So happy Pride. It's the final weekend of it, and here is the Citywide Interfaith Pride service.
Welcome to the third annual Citywide Pride Service. I'm Pam Rocker St. Armand, and on behalf of Calgary's affirming network of faith communities and affirming connections, I want to say that we are truly glad that you've come out to join us here today. Celebrating Pride is important to us not only today or this week or this month, but every day, year round, because it's a reminder that we are loved, accepted, that we exist, we resist, we learn and we grow and we fight for each other, and that we are truly people who belong. We know that toxic religion can and has been a source of prejudice and of hate and discrimination, and for that we lament. But we also know that healthy religion can be a source of healing and community. We don't have to listen to the voices that say we have to conform in order to belong. In fact, we get to have it all. We can celebrate and practice the rites and rituals that are meaningful to us and live in the fullness of who we are. That is how it is meant to be. People of faith can and should be a voice. And this is why we're here to say we see you, you matter, and we affirm the unique and wonderful ways that we all live and love. So today we join together from many faiths and backgrounds, honoring and celebrating our differences. Today you'll hear different embodiments of songs and prayers and sacred texts, as well as a message from our special guest, Reverend Joplin. You may have heard about June, as she made international headlines last summer when she came out as a trans woman and was subsequently and unfortunately fired by her Baptist congregation. Now, Reverend Joplin is a minister at the Metropolitan Community Church in Toronto, and she's here with us today to share a message of hope and love. We're so excited to share this service with you. We've been working on it all summer, and if you only get one thing out of this time with us, we want you to know that you are not alone. Welcome.
In our commitment and ongoing work of reconciliation, we would like to first acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of Treaty 7 territory. This is the land of the Blackfoot, Kainai, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda nations, as well as the lands of the Métis Region 3. In this virtual gathering, we would also like to acknowledge that we all stand on Turtle Island, land inhabited by thriving traditional territories, bands, and confederacies of Indigenous people. We invite you to take a moment of silence as you recognize the treaty of which you are a part of.
At this Pride service, we remember those we have lost to COVID, those lost to the tragedy of intergenerational trauma and abuse, those who were thrown out on the street, purged from communities, who suffered under a cloak of fear, our Wiyunkte and Wichunkte, who had to lose their identity, traditions, and place of honor in our communities, who lost their lives as lesbian and trans people, as missing and murdered women, girls, and Two-Spirit people, or as victims of residential school genocide. Remember, they were lost because of Christian patriarchy and white supremacy. On this day, as we pause in silence for those that never came home, let us never forget we have much to make right.
Hello, I am Cantor Russ Jane, the spiritual leader of Beth Tzedek Congregation, a welcoming, egalitarian, conservative synagogue here in Southwest Calgary. And I would like to welcome all of you to this citywide interfaith Pride service. May this special time together be for us, as in the words of Abraham Joshua Heschel, a palace in time, a sacred moment filled with potential, where we can truly connect with ourselves, with others, and with the divine. Welcome.
Knox United Church welcomes you. In God's world, every color is meant to shine, and we at Hillhurst United Church welcome you.
Welcome from Ralph Connor Memorial United Church in Canmore. How wonderful it is that our paths are crossing in this time of song and celebration and reflection.
Scarborough United Church welcomes you, whoever you are. We're glad you're here.
Whoever you are, Okotoks United Church wants you to know you are fully welcome.
Sirens Valley United Church welcomes you.
Hey friends, Nick here with Red Deer Lake United Church in the southwest corner of Calgary. And I'm here to let you know that you, yes you, even you in the back, you are loved, you are enough. And in this place, you are welcome, you are wanted, and you are accepted.
Welcome from Lutheran Church of the Cross. Thank you for coming out together in faith.
Hi, I'm Joanne Anquist, minister at McDougall United Church. Welcome to the Citywide Pride Service, all you who live your love out loud and proud.
Whoever you are, however you identify, St. Andrew's United Church
and Deer Park United Church are so glad that you are joining us this morning to come out together in faith.
Welcome from Robert McClure United Church. Your presence here is a gift.
We are so grateful to be gathering with you here together in this time and this place. Welcome from St. Thomas United Church.
Wildrose United Church welcomes you, whoever you are. We're glad you're here.
Hello, everyone, and greetings from Lakeview United Church here in the heart of Calgary. We are a proud, affirming community of faith and welcome you here anytime to come and experience the presence of God.
Welcome to Woodcliff United Church. How wonderful it is that our paths are crossing at this time of song and celebration and reflection.
Happy Pride Day, Calgary.
St. Stephen's Anglican Church welcomes you. Whoever you are, we're glad you're here.
At St. Lawrence Anglican Church, we are glad that you have come out together in faith.
Welcome from YYC Campus Ministry
and Lutheran Campus Ministry.
Your presence here is a gift.
Welcome from the Anglican Parish of Christ Church in Elbow Park. What a blessing you coming out is to the world.
Welcome from the Lost Presbyterian Church. Your presence here is a gift.
Beloved of God, created in God's image, let us gather in this time in beautiful and diverse community to worship God together. Northminster United Church welcomes you.
Hi, welcome to St. David's United Church. Thank you for joining us today in faith.
From Calgary Intermennonite Church, your presence here is a gift.
Good morning from Calgary Queer Church. We're so glad you're here, queerly beloved. Let's gather together and celebrate.
Welcome from Rundle Memorial United Church in Banff. Thanks for coming out together in faith.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Al Tawi Juma Circle is an affirming Muslim community with a chapter in Calgary. We are a non-gender segregated, progressive LGBTQIA2 spirit. We are an affirming community of love, learning, and mutual support. We are also called the Unity Mosque. And with us, you are welcome exactly as you are.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rabbi Mark Glickman from Temple B'nai Tikva, and on behalf of myself and our congregation and the entire Jewish community, I want to welcome you to this celebration of Pride here in Calgary 2021. You know, just a week ago, in synagogues all over the world, we read a portion of the Torah, our Jewish scripture, called Ki Teitzei, when you come out, a perfect Torah portion for this Pride season. And what's important is that the Torah portion contains instructions as to how to be holy, and the words Ki Teitzei, when you come out, are worded to each of us as individuals. It's worded in the singular. So at this season of Pride, I urge each of you to come out, and together we can stand on behalf of everything that we know to be good and true and holy in our world. And then as we come out, we will be able to stand together in faith. Shalom.
Hello, I'm Reverend Shelley Thompson, and we are Calgary Unitarians. We're united not by a doctrine or any dogma, but by a shared covenant that promotes healthy relationships among us and justice, equity, and compassion for all people. Our congregation joyfully welcomes all members of the LGBTQ+ community to participate fully with us. We welcome you, your whole self, your truths and your doubts, your joys and your dreams. Please join us for this extraordinary faith adventure. We look forward to meeting you. Come on out to Calgary Unitarians.
In Jewish tradition, the lighting of candles is used to mark the transition between ordinary mundane time and special sacred time. It is therefore most appropriate that we should light candles for the start of Pride, because this is our moment, our special time, when we can truly be with ourselves and with each other in a unique and special way that we cannot do during the rest of the year. This is our holiday, our holy day, our special time to explore everything that Pride can mean. And so before I light the candles today, I would like to offer up this kavanah, this intention, that I hope we can carry with us throughout this Pride festival. It was written by Rabbi Barbara Rothstein. May the light of these candles cause us all to see each other as part of our shared community. May the light of these candles glow with our warm feelings for all members of our community. May the light of these candles reveal our faces to be reflections of the other members of our open, caring community. May these candles help us to recognize the needs of others and show us a way to help them. May the light of these candles guide us to see a path to a better life for all and show us a way to move there together. May the light of these candles encourage us to find and to share life's truths and use them to improve all our lives. May the light of these candles assist us to lift our spirits to help ourselves and others. In the glow of these candles, may we bond together to become an even better shared community. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של יום טוב. Blessed are you, the divine, our God, sovereign of the world, who has made us holy and has commanded us to light the lights of this special time.
Oki Nixukuat, Daniko Makoi Omaka Nimoktoto on Skapi Bikani. Hello, my name is Spirit River Stripewolf. I'm from the Bikani First Nation of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and my Blackfoot name is Enduring Running Wolf. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about culture, indigeneity, in this conversation of coming out in faith. So the one thing that I want to share with you folks was this blanket. I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's kind of has this tie-dye effect on it, and it was gifted to me by a member of the Gatekeeper tribe of the Tuscarora Nation, which is located in the States, and she is the last of her particular tribe. It was this practice of tie-dyeing, and I believe this was tie-dyed with using chestnuts. Is something that was gifted to her by her grandparents. She doesn't have any children, and so she came here to Blackfoot territory to talk about how she could transfer this to the Blackfoot Nation. And so I work with a professor at Mount Royal University, and the professor ended up working on this larger program about transferring the skills on how to dye cloth using natural fibers and so forth. She also dyes with indigo and other things like this. And so this is supposed to have a healing component to it. And so I was really honored when I received this from this elder from the Tuscarora Nation. And so through her ability, she was able to transfer that skill onto the Kainai First Nation. And so even though this particular skill and this particular style and the stories associated with it might no longer be with this elder's tribe anymore, it continues to thrive through this transferability to the Kainai Nation. And it's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful story, but you can't really talk about Indigenous culture and spirituality without recognizing genocide that has happened to Indigenous people on Turtle Island. I've dedicated a lot of my life and my degree. I go to Mount Royal University on conversations about trauma. I wrote a paper on it. I do workshops. If anyone's interested, you can go to stripewolf.ca. But I do ask in this session of the presentation that you take a moment to remember that we cannot move forward as a community without truth and reconciliation. And in that same vein, I'd like to share the Bikani Blackfoot prayer with you folks as an act to help with cultural revitalization from assimilation. My nation actually provided an app. It's called the Bikani app. And it's another way of just helping Bikani people learn our language and always have a piece of our identity everywhere we go. So I'll share with you the prayer. I won't do it perfectly, but it is something that's really significant to me. Ayo, it's back to the Oak, calling on you, the source of life. Gitsik simatsimam opinan, we welcome and greet you. Gimatokinan nistona opagatsin, be compassionate to us children. Gispomokinan kiasmotsokinan, siksibatsin, help us and guide to a good life. Gokinan, give us misabatsin, long good life. Gikomotani, and bless us with a safe life. Amen.
The white moon rose over us from the valley of Wada, and we owe it to show gratefulness where the call is to Allah. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Mashallah, Subhanallah. Ramanya Harada. Oh, you raised among us, coming with the word to be obeyed. You have brought to the city nobleness. Welcome you, call to the best way. Allah Badru Alayna, Bintaniya Tilwada, Wajaba Shukru Alayna, Nada Lilahina, Lilahina.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. This verse is from the Quran's 49th chapter, Al-Hujurat, the rooms or private chambers. It was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, while he was in Medina, and is a chapter that contains etiquette and respectful behavior in communities celebrating diversity. This particular verse is a favorite among many of us. O humankind, indeed, we have created you from both of your parents. We made you into peoples and tribes so that you may know one another. Indeed, the noblest among you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous among you. Allah is truly all-knowing and all-aware.
Shir Hamalot LeDavid Ine Matov Manaim Shevet Achim Dam Yachad כשמן הטוב על הראש, יורד על הזקן, זקן הארון, שיורד על פי מידותיו. כטל חרמון שיורד על הרי ציון, כי שם ציווה אדוני את הברכה. חיים עד העולם. A song for a rising of David. How good and how pleasant it is that we can dwell together. It is like fine oil on the head running down onto the beard of Aaron that comes down over the collar of his robe, like the dew of Hermon that falls upon the mountains of Zion. For there Adonai ordained the blessing, everlasting life.
A reading from the Gospel of John. Dear friends, let's love each other, because love is from God, and everyone who loves is born from God and knows God. The person who doesn't love does not know God, because God is love. God is love, and those who remain in love remain in God, and God remains in them. We love because God first loved us. Those who say, I love God, and hate their brothers or their sisters are liars. After all, those who don't love their siblings whom they have seen can hardly love God whom they have not seen. This commandment we have from God. Those who claim to love God ought to love their siblings also. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Well, grace and peace to you, beloved siblings, in the spirit of the lover and the reconciler of all things, in the spirit of the Creator, who takes delight whenever one of us discovers who we really are. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this virtual celebration with Calgary's Affirming Network. I'm grateful for the work that you are doing to bring different faith communities together in the spirit of unity and inclusivity. And I have to say, I really love this year's theme, coming out together in faith. And I'm proud of the ways that you have and are coming out, or as we might say in my faith tradition, bearing witness. I believe that our world needs to hear more and more and more from affirming people of faith. Too often, it seems like the non-affirming voices are given bigger platforms and handed louder microphones, even though there are tens of millions of us out there who are affirming. I dream of more and more of us being out and proud and loud and unapologetic, not just about who we are, but about how our faith informs and enriches our diverse identities. Now, speaking of coming out, I first came out to a few people who are very close to me back in 2018, a little more than 3 years ago now. But as a lot of folks know, who kind of know my story, I came out completely, fully, in June of last year in what turned out to be a very public way, a public forum. Well, one of the questions that I've gotten asked quite often in the time since is, how has your coming out, how has your transition affected your faith? And friends, that's what I want to speak to you a little bit about today. To answer that question, I like to borrow some language from the Christian scriptures, and in particular from the first letter of John, which we've heard this morning. Beloved, writes the author of 1 John, let us love one another, because love is from God, and if you love, you are connected to God. Love is your way of experiencing God. You might think that you don't know what God is or who God is, but if you're giving and receiving love, then you know you have firsthand knowledge of the divine. As much as any pastor or minister or theologian or religious scholar, if you know love, then you know God. Love has its origin with God. God's fingerprints are all over it. We can't really see God, but we can get close to God simply by sharing love with one another. To give and to receive love is to make a home in God, and for God to make a home in you, because God is love. Or, as Leo Tolstoy once said, where love is, God is. So if you want to connect with God, connect with love. If you want to get closer to God, get closer to the places where love abounds. If you want to better understand God's ways, or what some people might call God's will for your life, seek to abound in love. Now, like I said a moment ago, people often ask me how my coming out and how my transitioning has affected my faith, whether that process has enriched my faith or deepened my faith. And I have to admit that as often as I've heard that question, or some version of that question, I'm never really sure just what to say. I suppose I could simply say that it's complicated. Now, there have been times over the last year or so when I've wondered whether I'd be better off just staying away from the church or staying away from pastoral ministry. Because, immersing yourself in a religious community makes you vulnerable to the experience of religious trauma. And some communities obviously are more safe than others. I'm grateful to faith communities that are publicly and intentionally and explicitly welcoming of LGBTQ2+ people, but being in any kind of community, even one that strives to be open and affirming, is a vulnerable thing. It's a vulnerable act. When we step into community, we carry with us all of our past experiences in community. Sometimes that makes things tricky. About a year ago, I went with a friend to a church building where my friend was going to take some pictures of me. And at the time, I hadn't actually set foot in a church building since the day I had to clean out my old office in the place where I got fired. I walked around the halls and I found my way to the sanctuary, and in doing that, I noticed a kind of anxiety that hadn't been there before. As I took a few really deep breaths and I listened to my anxious body, I realized that at the time, I really didn't miss going to church. And I thought about, in that moment, how grateful I was that church in the age of COVID has meant not having to show up in a physical space with pews and a chancel and stained glass and other people. I wasn't too sure that I could do that back then, a year ago or so. And it didn't have anything to do with the prospect of catching COVID-19. And hey, spoiler, by the way, that building I was in a year ago is actually the building where I'm working now, the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto. I'm really grateful to be serving as an associate pastor there today. They've been welcoming all people, no exceptions, for almost 50 years. And I'm so proud and I'm so excited to be given a chance to be part of that community, to serve along that congregation of faithful people. And so I guess the good news is a year later, I've been taking steps to process the trauma and overcome some of that anxiety, even as I keep checking in with myself and listening to my body. But it's hard sometimes, I must say, for someone for whom church has been at the center of her life, for someone whose livelihood has depended on showing up at church. Those triggered feelings, those trauma responses have been kind of mystifying. They've been troubling to me in a way. Now, there have been places in my life, in my journey during the past year or so, when I've asked myself, even as I've endeavored to step back into church work, you know what, June, what would it look like if you just never went back? If you never had to face another congregation, if you never had to write another sermon or stand in front of a gathered congregation of people. And I have to confess, friends, there are times when I suspect that would look pretty safe and pretty peaceful. So I don't know. So whenever people ask me about how coming out and how transition has affected my faith, well, these are some of the thoughts and senses and feelings that begin to race through my mind. I guess you could say that my faith in the church just isn't what it used to be. I know that I'm not the first person or the only person who feels that way. My guess is that a lot of us, and not just Christians, are dealing with some of those feelings around our wider faith communities. Now, if these snapshots from my own journey seem relatable to you, if you're in that place where faith or faith communities or your past experiences with religion are making you tense or afraid, or if the whole relationship for you is just, kind of complicated, it's okay. You're not alone. I see you. You are held in love. But just as surely as I would confess that my faith in the church has at least taken a hit as a result of the recent events in my life and a whole host of other events, I can simultaneously confess that my faith in God is stronger than ever. And that's thanks in part to the wonderful and even provocative affirmation that we find in 1 John chapter 4. God is love. And if we love one another, God dwells within us. God dwells in love. God is love. God is not church. God is not religion or religious institution. God does not dwell in denomination or in creed or in doctrine or in praying the right prayer the right way. God doesn't dwell in the names that we use for God or whether those are the right names or not. Those things are things we made. They're our creations. We have crafted them at best to help us and to guide us as we seek to abound in love, as we seek to abound in God. As someone who only came out last year and only became self-accepting in 2018, I don't have very much experience as part of the LGBTQ2+ community, but I've seen and experienced enough to know that for many people, queer community is the one place on earth where they truly experience love. And friends, remember, God is love. A couple years ago, only about a month before I came to Canada, I read a news article that mentioned a young woman attending Toronto Pride for the first time. I felt more myself and more accepted there than I have ever felt, she told a reporter. That's what love looks like. When you encounter love like that, you are encountering God. Last fall, I met a gay couple in Toronto through a mutual friend, and they invited me to their home for coffee out on their patio. And when I arrived, there was this whole crowd there because it turns out they have some extra space in their house. And so they've opened their home to half a dozen LGBTQ2+ refugees from Middle Eastern countries, and they're working tirelessly to help resettle others. That's what love looks like. When you encounter love like that, you're encountering God. 2 trans women that I know got engaged last year, and At the time, they were stuck on opposite sides of the US-Canada border, and so they used GPS to locate a suitable spot. They hiked through the woods, and they came to the place where the Niagara River was only about 100 yards wide, and that was as close as they could be to one another at the time. And so they blew kisses to one another. They exchanged socially distant gestures of loving embrace. It was a beautiful thing, and friends, that's what love looks like. When you encounter love like that, you are encountering God. I recently met an older man who was with his husband for decades, and he stood by his side as they both endured the stigma of coming out as gay back when the world wasn't quite as accepting as it is in 2021. He and his husband were faithful to one another in all things, even though the religious traditions they'd grown up in called their marriage sinful. And when his husband's health began to decline, he was there by his bed, taking care of him, advocating for him, comforting him, until he passed away. A dedicated spouse, the man still carries his late husband in his heart. That's what love looks like. When you encounter love like that, you are encountering God. Over the past year, I've heard from so many kind and supportive people. People who reach out to say that they are rooting for me, that they're behind me, that they're praying for me, that they're thankful for my witness. When I was out of work, people often message me to say they hoped I found a place to land. Sometimes I hear from parents of trans kids or from other trans people of faith, or even from other pastors who are living in closets of their own, and we connect with each other. We encourage one another. We say prayers for one another. We show one another that we're not alone. And that's what love looks like, friends. When you encounter love like that, you're encountering God. God is love, folks. And you are beloved. When you receive love, when you give love, God is there. Regardless of your identity, your religion, your class, your orientation, your race, your gender, your history, regardless of whether you think of yourself as a God person or you don't, and regardless of the hateful things that others might have said to you or done to you in the name of God, when you encounter love, I believe that you are somehow encountering God, because God is love. No matter how many different ways we've tried to draw a circle around who or what God is, no matter how we've tried to describe or define or understand God, it's my conviction that we can't really say it better than we do when we confess that God is love. God is love. I can make that confession with faith deeper than it has ever been before, precisely because it's something I have experienced in ways that move and astound me, ways that I never expected. Wherever love dwells, God dwells there too. Often we find that love when and where we weren't expecting, where we weren't even looking for it. But friends, remember, wherever love is found, that's where you'll find God. And so, beloved, let's receive God's love wherever we may find it, and let's reflect it boldly, freely, proudly, and without exceptions. Amen.
I don't know who you think I am, but I belong in the promised land. I don't know who you think I am, but I'll be ready at the Father's hand. I may never know money, I'll never know fame, but I wrestled too long to lose my name. I got a mouth full of blood and my knuckles are blue, but I sleep real good, baby, how about you? Baby, how about you? I don't know who you think I am, but I belong in the promised land. I don't know who you think I am, but I'll be ready at the Father's hand. At the Father's hand. Oh Lord, take me home where my soul is good and grown. Oh Lord, take me home. I won't have done this walk alone. I don't know who you think I am, but I belong in the promised land. I don't know who you think I am, but I'll be ready at the Father's hand. I don't know who you think I am, but I belong in the promised land. I don't know who you think I am, but I'll be ready at the Father's hand.
This is an adapted excerpt from a sermon by Reverend Mark D. Stewart of St. Thomas the Apostle. The rainbow has a much larger significance. It is a gift to us from the beauty of God's natural world of refracting diversity, from something that is already at unity, the sun. One light, many hues of color. The Spirit of God comes to us not to force submission of the individual to a triumphalist church or a totalitarian state. The Spirit refracts one into many hues, many tints, and many shades. Its unity is given, demonstrated in diversity. The great multitude of God's beloved come together, all speaking the same language of the magnificent works of God. The rainbow depends for its strength on embracing all the colors of the spectrum. It does not absorb, but displays the individual's gifts in order to make it complete and more brilliant.
The Wisdom of Solomon, Chapter 2, adapted by Kimmy Floyd Reich. We are a gathering of diverse people, woven rainbow threads, drawn together as if a single prayer shawl, laying upon the shoulders of those who have been rejected or harmed, broken by the world, and how the world and its religious institutions have treated their queer children, siblings, parents, family, friends.
We are a gathering of diverse people, woven rainbow threads, drawn together as if a single prayer shawl, laying upon the shoulders of those who have stood up, and those who stand with us as othered people.
We do not have to speak the same languages. We can witness different sacred truth. We can love differently, yet recognize that love is the same, no matter the person we share it with. For God created us for incorruption, made in the image of mortality.
We do not have to look the same, love the same, live the same, pray the same, or even believe the same. Blue uses red to shine. Yellow reflects next to green.
Orange and purple, black and white, brown and pink. Sameness should never be the goal. Our diversity is holy diversity.
We come out together in faith, committing to deeper connection, to listen more, to see and to witness, seeking compassion over conflict, choosing hope over hate, joyful in our intent, and dismissing the false unity that is sameness, woven instead in the unity of love. For God created us for incorruption, made in the image of love.
We belong.
We are the colors of love.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei kol yoshvei tevel, our God, God of all humanity. Today we thank you. We thank you for the opportunity that we have just had to come out together in pride. It is our hope and our prayer, O God, that soon every one of our gatherings throughout the world will be pride gatherings, gatherings in which each and every human being, regardless of gender or race or any of the other categories by which we're so often separated, can stand tall and proud of who they are and what they are. A time in which all humanity will honor that spark of God that glows within each of us. The Jewish mystical tradition teaches that in order to behold the presence of God, all we need to do is feel our pulse, because it is within the heartbeat of each and every human being that we can most regularly behold God's presence in our world. Let's always remember that every one of us bears that spark of divinity in us. And God, we thank you and we praise you for the opportunity we have had to gather together, to come out together in pride.